What's up, guys? My name is Coach Jimmy from Modern Athlete Strength. We're continuing our series on program design. We've covered structure to workouts in the past. Now we're going to cover exercise selection so we can start plugging and playing different exercises based on the category. So the goal of this presentation is to help you guys start putting together your library to make life easier when it comes to program design. So why is exercise selection important? It helps you build your program. So once you have the structure of what you're doing, then you can start plugging in exercises. From there, you got to figure out what exercise you're going to actually test. Is it bench, squat, and deadlift, which is more common to see if you're going to test 1RMs on those exercises? Is it you have Olympic lifts, or you're going to test your cleans, things like that? It's really important to figure out what exercise you are going to test. From there, you have your supplemental exercises. So what are those going to be, and what category do those fall under? The exercise order, are you choosing more of a traditional upper-lower split where all your upper body exercises are going to be on one day, then your lower, and vice versa? Or are you going to more of a total body split? So that's going to be important, because what exercise you're going to have first in a total body structured system. So once you have what your structure is, then you can start plugging in those exercises. What is going to be the volume for each exercise? So for your main movement of the day, is it going to be more strength? So lower volume and higher intensity. For your accessories, is going to be higher volume, more hypertrophy based. The other reason why exercise selection is important is for modifications for injured athletes. For example, if somebody can't do a pull-up because they have an upper extremity injury, all right, how are you going to modify that exercise to make sure you're not substituting exercise that doesn't fit the category? So if somebody can't do a pull-up, you shouldn't have them do a push variation in place of the pull-up. If they're supposed to do a pull-up and they can't do it because they have that injury, it still matches the category. It's a vertical pull variation. So it may be a single arm lat pull down, things like that. The other part to exercise selection is covering different movement patterns. If they're an athlete or somebody that trains multiple planes, you want to do that in the weight room as well. So are they training in the sagittal plane, frontal plane, transverse plane? So making sure your exercises fit those categories and you cover all those areas within a training program. So the goal of this is to make life easier for program design. You don't want to be sitting, writing a program and trying to think of different exercises. You want to have all that in front of you. So what I suggest is putting an Excel template together and having, based on what I'm going to show you in the next couple of slides, putting all your exercises based on the category in there. So then you keep developing it as you accumulate more exercises for your library. So the first category we're going to cover is your total body category. For me, again, there's a lot of different exercises that can be plugged in to the total body category. Some people may have different exercises in there than I do, but this is just to start the conversation and to have you guys to start thinking about what exercise you want to start having in your program. So for me, this is going to cover all of my Olympic variations. So my clean variations, my snatch variations, whether it's with dumbbells, kettlebells, barbells. As you can see, I have landmine variations up there. These are going to be all of my total body movement category exercises. So like I said, have this on a tab on Excel and then just start building your library. With all of these exercises, your exercise is going to be dictated to what tools you have in front of you. So if you're programming for a garage gym, you may not have every bell and whistle equipment wise. Whereas if you're training in a Division I Power 5 weight room where you have every tool imaginable, every piece of equipment you need, your exercise pool is going to look a little different. But again, you can build as many exercises you want. Just know you may not be able to pull out that tool if you don't have access to that piece of equipment. Okay, so that's your total body movement category. The next category is bilateral and unilateral lower body pushing movements. So this is your squat variations, whether it's back squat, whether it's front squat, goblet squat, kettlebell squat, whatever it may be. This is going to fall into that category. So here I have back squat to a box, regular back squat, then adding chains, bands, things like that. You can add pause variations. Then you go into your front squat to a box, front squat variations, again, adding chains, bands, accommodating resistance, and then specialty bars. If you have access to safety squat bars, that's SSB, cambered bar, you name it. There's a lot of specialty bars out there, but as long as it's a squat variation, it would fall into the lower body push category. And then you have your overhead squat variations as well. Next one would be your bilateral and unilateral lower body push. This is also continued, so this is more of your single leg patterns. So you have your split squat variations, whether it's with dumbbells, barbell, bands, kettlebells, all of that's going to fit into this category. Your lunge variations, forward, lateral, then moving into your step up variations, again, barbells, dumbbells, whatever you have access to. Rear foot elevated split squats, same thing. There's a bunch of different variations out there. You create this is your template, so you throw your exercise in there. So then you have your lateral squat variations, dumbbells, kettlebells, landmine, things like that. But this is landmine, so this would be your single leg or unilateral lower body push variations. Next one is going to be bilateral and unilateral lower body pull or posterior chain. So you have your deadlift variations. This could be trap bar. This could be straight bar. This could be sumo deadlift. Then you have your accommodating resistance with your chains, your bands, your pauses. Then you have your RDL variations. So is it barbell, dumbbell, kettlebell, and then single leg RDL variations. Same thing. And then the next category I have here, it all falls into lower body pull or posterior chain. So you have your glute bridge variations, whether that's back elevated, whether that's glute bridge from the floor, single leg glute bridge, things like that. And then also you have your hamstring curl variations, whether it's bands, machine, slide board, things like that would be your hamstring curl variation there. And then your Nordic hamstring or your glute ham raise, things like that would fall into the posterior chain side of things. Next one, you have your bilateral and unilateral upper body horizontal push. So this would be all of your bench press variations. So barbell bench press, dumbbell bench press, accommodating resistance bench press, so chains, bands, close grip bench, various grip on bench press, but again, horizontal pushing. We think of exercises more about movements rather than muscle groups. So we're thinking about horizontal push in this category. And then you can add your specialty bars if you have access to that as well. Bilateral and unilateral angled push. So this would be all of your incline variations, barbell, dumbbell, alternating, your TRX or blast strap push-ups, various specialty bars if you have access to them, machine incline, jammer presses, things like that. And then also your unilateral variations of those same exercises. So single arm, dumbbell incline, alternating dumbbell incline, top down alternating, up, bottoms up alternating, things like that could fall into your unilateral angled push of these variations here. Moving on, we have your bilateral and unilateral horizontal pulling variations. So you have all of your row variations. So bent over row, T-bar row, chest supported row, cable row variations. This is going to be dictated by different attachments you may have access to. You can label all those in this category. Pendlay row, fat grip row, blast strap or TRX, inverted rows. You have your snatch grip, barbell row, and then moving into the unilateral side of things, you have your one-arm rows, your landmine one-arm rows, one-arm band rows, one-arm cable rows. Again, the single arm variations are great, not only for different variation, but also for injured athletes or injured clients that have, again, in this case, it would be an upper extremity injury, and you make the modifications to, it still fits the same category, but it's now just a single arm variation. So next we have your bilateral and unilateral vertical pushing. So this would be all of your military press options. So you have barbell military, dumbbell military. You could be seated dumbbell military, your Arnold press, your alternating incline, your single arm dumbbell military press, your Z press, your landmine half kneeling, or any landmine pressing there, because it still falls into the overhead category, dumbbell half kneeling, military press. And then moving into the unilateral side of things, you have your single arm standing or seated dumbbell military press, your half kneeling military press, your one arm landmine press, all falls into the vertical push category. For the bilateral and unilateral vertical pull, this would be all of your lat pull downs and pull ups. Based on what you have access to, you can make this as robust as you want. Based on the attachments you have for lat pull downs, based on the grips you have for pull ups or chin ups. You have towel pull ups, fat grip pull ups, rock climbing grip pull ups. If somebody can't do a pull up, you could throw a band assisted pull up in there as a variation, dumbbell pullover. And then on the single arm side of things, or the unilateral, you have your one arm lat pull down variations there with various attachments. Lower body and upper body accessories. You could put these into a couple different categories of upper body accessories, lower body accessories. I just pull them together here, but your shrugs, your lateral raises, your biceps, your triceps, your calf work, you can put your prehab exercise into its own tab on Excel and keep building that out, whether it's lower body prehabs, upper body prehabs, things like that. So for those of you not familiar with prehab is the opposite of rehab. Prehab is to prevent the injury, hopefully, and then rehab is obviously after you have that injury. So those would be your prehab, to all preventative measures in a program, but you could have that as a separate category as well. On your core categories, you should have some structure to why you're doing what you're doing for core. So here I have anti-extension. So this would be all of your plank variations, whether it's regular plank, whether it's weighted plank, feet elevated, single leg planks, things like that, you name it. There's a lot of different plank variations out there, but I would suggest building that list. Stability ball, stir the pot. Ab wheel is another great anti-extension exercise, and you could build this, continuously build this. Next one, anti-rotation. So this would be your Pallof press variations, whether it's half kneeling, tall kneeling, standing, Pallof presses, Pallof rotations, landmine cauldrons are another anti-rotation exercise. So that would fall into this category. Next one, anti-lateral flexion, would be your side plank variations. Would also be your suitcase hold, so holding one dumbbell or kettlebell for time. Next one would be suitcase carry variations, so dumbbell or kettlebell carries, so now holding one implement and walking for a distance. And then you have your waiter's carries, which would be holding an implement overhead, one implement overhead, and walking with it, or staying stationary and stabilizing that way. That would fall into the anti-lateral flexion category. Next one, trunk flexion. This would be any of your sit-up variations. There's a bunch out there, whether it's straight leg sit-ups, bent leg sit-ups, feet elevated, decline sit-ups, you name it. Trunk flexion exercises would fall into all into this category. Okay, so what I challenge you guys is to start making your own library and start plugging exercises in there. So I would take 15 minutes, try to put as many exercises into each category. So all of your total body movements, all the categories that I covered, and start looking at what equipment you have access to and start creating your library. It will help tremendously when it comes time to programming, especially if you're writing a lot of individualized programs. Like I said earlier, you don't want to be sitting at a computer or sitting at a notepad trying to come up with exercises off the fly. It just saves a lot of time if you have all those exercises in front of you. And then based on the clientele or based on your equipment, you can just start grabbing exercise and plugging them into your program. And again, these are just examples of some. You could add your own categories here, but this is just to start the conversation and to get you guys thinking outside the box there. So again, if you like these videos, follow us on YouTube. You can reach out to us on Instagram if you have any follow-up questions. But that covers the exercise library side of this week's program design. Thank you.